The truth of the matter is fat doesn't really make you fat. Sugar makes you fat,
That's
right?
Yeah. Well, excess makes you fat.
Excess makes
and
you fat.
poor digestion makes you fat.
Right now, that is like the craze. Anything with like, how do you manage your glucose and wearing the glucose monitor. There's all these trends and fads, and that's
Eat your protein first. Have apple cider vinegar. Like all these things, right?
Yeah. What does work? Like, what are some easy, basic things we can do to manage our glucose levels or to kind of keep us from not spiking? Do you know if you're hydrated or not?
Right.
Is it not by just the amount of water? Because I thought if you're just drinking a lot of water, you'd be hydrated.
Yeah. Boy, have we screwed up the American population. Like, remember it used to be 8 ounces of glasses, like you needed to get that in. And then it was half your body weight.
Okay, is it a myth that we should all be taking vitamin D? Because I feel like now vitamin D is like the new kale. Like everybody and their dog is
cauliflower. So I think it is important. It's one of the nutrients that I don't know how we could get even close to the amount that we need because it functions as a hormone in our body and because it's related to almost everything metabolic and from an immune standpoint.
This will be a very information-loaded, informative podcast because we have a friend of mine who is probably one of the most knowledgeable dietitians in the country. And I'm not just saying this because I think she is, just because she's been recognized and renowned to be. The girl is brilliant. And whenever I have questions about anything, diet, nutrition, technically overall health, I come to her. Her name is Ashley Koff. Thank you, Ashley, for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. This is so fun. I love the IRL.
No, this is amazing. Ashley, just quickly, Ashley and I first met on a TV show that we did called Shedding for the Wedding. I was the fitness trainer. She was the diet person. And we met, how many years ago was that?
So before Kids for You, I feel like 20 plus, like 20?
No,
15?
Are you kidding me? No. 15? My kids aren't 20.
No. I was thinking, how long ago?
No. I think a year or two before I had kids, probably 15 years ago. 15 years ago, we did a show on the CW called Shedding for the Wedding, and it was hilarious. And we became fast friends then. And I mean, like I said, the vast amount of information that this girl knows and can spew out at any note at given time. It's amazing. She actually recently, you put me on to green fat.
I did. Which
is, of course, which I love.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And ever since then, we were now I'm a huge, of course, wellness supplement person. And Ashley is always like, no, that's not good for you because of this. This is really good for you because of that. And it's made a huge difference. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I do want to say two things. One is information, as we're going to talk about, may not be actually better. So the quality of information is really important.
Yes.
And the second one is I loved turning you on to green fat because it was such a great solution for you. And as we'll also talk about, just taking more supplements isn't the answer.
Totally. So that was my problem.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. I don't understand. Every time I kept on over supplementing myself. And I think let's talk about this because I think a lot of people just take supplements because they think they know it's a good supplement, so then they start taking it and it may not be the right thing for them, right? It's not an individual. It's like people you need to be much more individualized and personalized. Right. And we'll talk about that. But I was taking everything, omega-3s, vitamin D. I was taking NAC. Do you know what NAC is?
Absolutely.
I barely know what that is. I mean, I don't even know. I was taking glutamine. And every morning I'm taking 40 supplements. And I'm like, do I even need all these supplements? So can you tell, because we just mentioned green fat, just talk about why did you think it was good for me? Because it has been really good for me. So you're the expert.
I think one of the key things is that, so the omega-3 was a great, directionally, you were going in the right place. You're I've heard of omega-3s. I want to make sure I'm turning off inflammation or trying not to, not have inflammation start. And I'm saying to myself, all right, this is a good fat for me. But there's actually no food in nature that is an omega-3. So nature gives us the information, especially when it comes to plants, which is what animals eat to produce produce the fats in our body, etc. When we look at that, there's a variety of different fats. So there's omega-3, there's omega-6, there's omega-7, there's omega-9. And when I looked at your diet and when we compared that to your goals, especially from an aging standpoint and all the exercise that you get in and what you care about, cognitive function, family history, everything, I was like, Jen, we got to make sure you're getting in all these fats. And so this concept of a multi-fat, something that like our multivitamin or our multi-mineral could give us all those essential fatty acids, essential. We have to get them in daily at one time. It was like a no-brainer for you. I wasn't going to give you 30 new things to take.
No, of course. So then can you tell, okay, so what is the difference between taking an omega-3 and like a multi-fat vitamin, like a multi-fat vitamin?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not a vitamin, so it's a fat, right?
Okay,
so multi-fat.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things to consider. The first thing is that in this instance, when we look at an omega-3, green fat actually has omega-3s. It has omega-3s from plants. And it has a variety of omega-3s, because without making people infobese, which we'll talk about in a moment, too much information, there are many different omega-3s. So we actually want to get in all of those. So when we get in those, what we wanted to do is make sure that you're also getting in omega-6, omega-7, omega-9. So think of things like hemp seeds, wild salmon. Think about sea buckthorn oil, which is great for your skin. You're probably not consuming that from food. Chia seeds, olives, avocado. We need to get in all of those. With my patients, I often do an essential fatty acid profile, and I can see where there are deficits, and that helps me to go ahead and optimize. But in your case, we'd gone through your food, we'd looked at your genetics, and we also turned around and said, hey, what's your goals? And you were doing great on the omega-3 part, but you weren't getting in the others.
Right, I was deficient in
That's
all
right,
these other
in all
places.
Or maybe insufficient. You might not have been deficient because you do try to target things from a food standpoint, but we needed to make sure that you were getting optimal levels. So this becomes foundational on a daily basis for you.
Okay, so why is fat so important for your overall functioning?
Great. So all of these different fats play roles in the body in terms of communication. So they're helping to make sure that the body does things like turn off inflammation or resolve inflammation that's occurring, right? Helping for hormonal balance. One of the fats I was talking about, omega-6s, are really a type of omega-6 called GLA. I call it the glamour fatty acid. Our hair, our skin, our nails, dryness in certain parts of our bodies, especially as we age, all of these things, that's what that fatty acid is helping with, right? When we look at
GLA?
GLA, so I call it the glamour fatty acid, right? So that's an omega-6. That's also why it blows my mind when people just say seed oils will kill you. No, seed oils aren't going to kill you. In fact, some of the seed oils are really important for your hair, skin, nails, and hormones. Bad seed oils? Yeah, they're really bad on that part. So we really have to learn to be able to differentiate. Look, for me, I want things to be easier and more efficient for individuals. And that's why when I saw green fat, I was like, absolutely, I'm totally on board. And I helped them sort of refine the formulation so that we could actually have something that's great for men, great for women, based on slight nuances in what they need.
Well, it's amazing because also if you work out a lot, I feel like I always have so much inflammation and joint issues. So that's interesting. So where else can you get like an omega-6? Because everyone knows about omega-3s.
Right.
Omega-6, omega-7. Is there food places you can
all
get
of them. So I was just listing. I mean, pretty much any food that has fat has a variety of these.
Okay.
And so what ends up happening is we're like, oh, walnuts, they're great for your omega-3s.
Yeah.
Yes, but they also have other fatty acids. Avocado, it has other fatty acids. Olive oil, it has other fatty acids. So the foods are not just the omega-9 in olive oil. It's also got omega-3. It's also got omega-6s. It just has smaller amounts. So when we see diverse diets, whether it's in blue zones or whether, the Mediterranean diet, they're actually having people take in a variety of different fats. And the idea is we want to do that on a daily basis. And just look, when it comes to life, I've been a part of your life, traveling, feeding your kids, running from one thing to the next, like exercising, not wanting to overload your system. If you're on, we never want to overload our system, but especially if you're going to be on camera, etc. It was going to be difficult to turn around and say, okay, Jen, here's what I want you to do. I'd like you to have 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds here. I'd like you to have a 4-ounce portion of salmon here. I'd like you to, yes, I love all of those things for you, but if I can also give you the option on a daily basis of giving you a foundational multi-fat, I can check that box, and then everything else you do with your nutrition is going to be optimization.
But That's great. I mean, also, the truth of the matter is fat doesn't really make you fat. Sugar makes you fat,
That's
right?
Yeah. Well, excess makes you fat.
Excess makes
and
you fat.
poor digestion makes you fat. So one of the other, we can take this direction because I know you've talked with Colleen before. So one of the other things that can overwhelm the system, your body actually has hormones like your incretin hormones. They're called GLP-1 or GIP. And these hormones are responsible for turning on the insulin response when exposed to carbohydrate or fats, turning on and off your appetite. So that's leptin and ghrelin. And those are made in your digestive system. So when your digestive system isn't better, when your digestive system has been irritated based on antibiotics or medications or stress or eating things that you're allergic or intolerant to, all of these different things, when that's happened, then those hormones aren't working efficiently. And so one of the things that we know is actually that a multifat and coming in, getting in omega-3s, but coming in and getting these fats in addition to getting in things like your Akkermansia probiotic and Clostridiums and Bifido and prebiotics and all of these other things that are great for your digestion, they all work together to optimize those hormonal responses. So when you talk about what makes us fat, especially I feel like it's important to mention just in this era of the popularity of the GLP-1 agonist medications, you know,
Which is Ozempic, yeah.
Right, you know, Mounjaro, et cetera. So with those,
which one's more effective, the Ozempic?
It depends on the person, right? So Ozempic was really designed for diabetes, but what we also are identifying is that the receptor sites for these GLP-1s, so this is your natural hormone. We're not talking about the medication. Your body naturally produces GLP-1. There are receptor sites all throughout your body, in your liver, in your brain, in your heart, in your pancreas. So we knew about the pancreas part. That's how we knew about it, that it would be effective for diabetes. But we're starting to see this be effective for cholesterol, for cognitive function. And so I'm on a mission to make sure we optimize that naturally. If you take a medication, great. And if that's what you and your practitioner are doing, but all of us should be focusing on optimizing those hormones naturally.
So what happens now that we're talking about Ozempic and the GLP-1?
Right, yeah.
I'm super curious about it because everybody I feel like is on it except me, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm missing out. Like maybe, but is there a problem if if you take something like that? Does it stop your body from naturally producing it?
Great question.
So if we're naturally producing it on our own, because I know that happens with, like, sometimes they say testosterone. If you
Right. Yeah. So there's a yes and a no, but let's try to simplify this. So if we want to compare the natural hormone GLP-1 to Ozempic, I like to say it's like decaf coffee versus a red eye. So a red eye is, I think, 4 shots of espresso. Yeah. Okay. So what happens is our body naturally should be producing GLP-1. We'll call it the decaf coffee for right now. And a lot of people are like, I don't want the decaf. Like, I need a little caffeine, you know, et cetera. And then on the other side, you have something that is coming in and you're getting in a lot more of it and it's sticking around for a longer time. I'm going to be much more caffeinated when I have 4 shots of espresso on that part. So that's how those medications are working. They're coming in and they're giving you a bunch of it and it's sticking around for a longer time because in our body, it tends to go away after a couple of minutes. When you take the medication, it sticks around for like 30 minutes. So there are advantages to that. If it sticks around longer, it's going to last for longer. That's why people their appetite is not, you know, they don't have appetite for a while or they are noticing better blood sugar responses. When you ask the question, does it stop your body from producing it? Probably not. I'm going to say probably because I don't think we understand everything. However, if you are taking a medication, if you feel you need that medication, you have just told me that very likely you've only got the decaf version of the natural production. Why not turn it into 1 cup of coffee or 1 cup of espresso? So when we naturally optimize our GLP-1 hormone production, which requires optimal digestive function, when we do that, it's like having 1 shot of espresso or 1 cup of coffee. And for most people, we need that. And we're trying to operate right now with the decaf version. So it's not about, is our body not producing it or not producing enough, you know, or do we stop the production? It's really about saying, hey, we could be optimizing, like you personally. And we did this. I was like, hey, I want you to take the Akkermansia and let's do this. Yeah. We can personally be optimizing your production. And
Akkermansia, by the way, just so people know, is another supplement that Ashley recommended by Pendulum. and it was for my gut health.
Yeah, for gut health and for this.
Yeah.
For your gut health, to optimize your blood sugar response. Because looking at you, when you say, somebody says like, oh, should you be on Ozempic? You're like, absolutely not. But if we looked at your fasting insulin, if we looked at, your goals for the future of not developing Alzheimer's or cognitive decline, we want to make sure that those things are optimal. And that's where that intervention is. So it's not just about weight. It's definitely about metabolic health.
Wow. So metabolically, okay, so then are you pro people taking it for weight loss then?
The medication?
Yeah, Ozempic. Are you pro people taking Ozempic for weight loss? Not for diabetes, because people are mass using it. There's not enough even on the shelves because people are using it for weight loss. They're not using it necessarily for diabetes.
Yeah. So years ago, when I was working with individuals who had weight loss surgery, we identified that the way that weight loss surgery works is it stimulates the production of GLP-1. So we have known this. So now that there's a medication version, you don't have to get the surgery, right? In most instances. So this could be an effective tool. But the problem is, and it's the same spiel I've been giving since day one, is there are a lot of ways that you can lose weight. If you don't gain health, you don't really get what you want. And I am seeing people who are losing weight, but they're actually even losing health while they're on that medication, or they're not optimizing health. So for me, and what I focus on are programs and optimization. If you're on the medication, I want to optimize, and if you're choosing to not go on the medication, or if you're not a good candidate. But when we're looking at losing weight, we need to make sure, and I'll turn to you, you're the expert here on this part, we have got to make sure that you're optimizing your body composition. I don't want you to just try to lose fat mass. I want you to lose fat mass. Most people are losing lean body mass.
Yes, that's what I've been I've seen is that when people are taking Ozempic, they're losing lean muscle mass.
Right.
And they are just ending up with more with more fat on their body, which then slows down their metabolism. And you get that like Ozempic face because it's taking out even the fat in your face. You get really gaunt. But the other thing I've heard is that the second you're off of it, you become so hungry and you end up like eating all those calories that maybe you didn't eat because your appetite was suppressed.
So let me take what is on social media and let's talk about the reality. It doesn't happen the second after, but over the course of the next year, you will likely regain a good percentage, if not all of your weight. And one of the absolute worst things for a physical body is to have significant swings in weight loss and weight gain.
Right, because that's how you also gain more weight over time. And for a lot of people I know in the fitness business who are on it or tried it or whatever, they lost a lot of their strength. Like they were much weaker technically, not because they did lose muscle mass, but also because it made them actually tired.
Yeah,
they weren't able to work out.
That's right.
They weren't even able to actually lift the amount of weight or do the strength training. Why is that? Like, why are we not as...
So a couple of things. If we suppress appetite, like we do with anything, if we just turn off your appetite...
So you're saying just because we're eating less...
So number one, you're eating less. Number two, if you had nutrient insufficiencies or deficiencies, and now you're eating less... those are more likely. So one of the things is I do a test for everyone who's going on it to see where your levels are of things, because I want to know what we're dealing with when we're starting. And then I regularly test while you're on the medication, because I want to see what your behaviors and your choices are doing on that part. Look, data, information about who you are, forget about knowledge about nutrition. If I just have information on who you are and what your body needs today, I can design a plan and I can give you choices. Hey, Jen, do you want to eat all of this, or do you want to try this in a supplement form, or do we want to do some combo of it?
Right.
So we need to do that.
So it's more personalized.
It has to be. And today I actually have to call it truly personalized because of the $1 billion industry or $1 billion+ that is personalized nutrition and medicine.
I was just going to ask you that. Everything is, I feel like everybody and their dog now is doing personalized everything medicine, personalized nutrition. People are all now, it's now a trend to be supplementing for you by taking these blood tests, taking these poop tests, taking whatever test you want, and they'll say, okay, you're deficient in this, and this, and then I'll supplement you for it. So isn't that technically what personalized nutrition is?
So yes and no, but here's a really big problem. So that's partially personalized.
Oh.
And that is what's being sold out there. And I'm so glad that you brought it up because it's my biggest, like, I can't believe, when we talk about Infobesity, I'll chat about this, but I can't believe that I have to put an adjective or an adverb, whatever it is, in front of the word personalized. I've been doing personalized nutrition for 25 years. It is a lot of work. It is a ton of questions that I have to ask. I don't just need to ask, what are you eating? I need to ask why. Because if I don't know the why behind what you're having or your choices, I may give you a recommendation that's not going to suit you. So if I go online and first of all answer a quiz, am I a vegetarian? Am I a woman? Am I 30 plus? Then they're going to spew out a recommendation for a supplement. They have no idea what I'm consuming in the day, and they also have not seen my blood work and don't know if my levels are too high of something or too low of something. If we go one step further and they look at my blood levels and then they only give me a supplement, or they look at my genes and they only give me a supplement, they have no idea what my choices are. So the supplement may, like, you don't know the why. A great example, to be very practical, is if I look on your lab test and you are low in iron, there are 12 different reasons that that come into my mind of why you might be low in iron. And if I just have you take an iron supplement and about 10 of those, I have missed that you actually have a health issue that I need to address. Right? And so all I'm doing is giving you that iron based off of one lab test that tells me this is a low level. I need to know why. So true personalization looks at what you're consuming, what you're not consuming, what those levels are, and maybe if we have the option, which, there's an added cost to, also looks at your genetics, just because that can help us understand how your body processes certain things. Yeah.
But don't a lot of these tests do take blood tests? A lot of them are doing.
And then they're selling you something.
Yes, then they're selling you something.
So that's my point. Is so if they're taking a look at your blood, so one of the ones that is at least better on that part is something called Function Health, and that's new, and it's looking at, it takes vials and vials of your blood, and it looks at a lot of different lab tests. But when you look at a CBC, when you look at a basic blood panel that you go to the doctor and insurance will cover, you have your iron there. You have a marker, and it'll say, is your iron high or low, right? But when I look at your iron, I look at 5 things because it's going to tell me what's going on that part.
So it's about like the depth of what they're looking for. So anyone could take a blood test and find out like the surface level.
That's right. Let me give you another analogy.
Yeah, okay.
If you have you worn a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor?
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. Okay. Have you worn one?
Yeah, it lasted on me for like not even a half an hour because I went to work out and my sweat it like fell off.
Yes. Okay.
And they're so it's uncomfortable.
That's right. So what I will say is, anytime you're going to give somebody a tool, one of the reasons that we use coaches is that when you're giving somebody a tool, give them the support to help them personalize it. So for you, I probably wouldn't have put it on your arm. Some people have hairy arms. You can put it on your belly, like on your belly.
I don't have hairy arms,
or you can put I was changing that conversation, but like the back of their leg, like there are different places we can do. Anyway. So a continuous glucose monitor is going to give me very good information. It gives me trend information. I want to be clear, it does not tell me what your blood sugar is in the moment because it's measuring in the interstitial fluid. It's actually not pricking your blood and seeing what the sugar is there, but it's giving us good information.
Okay.
So when I can see, do I have peaks and valleys? Do I have rolling hills? That's going to be really helpful for me. There are 40 plus factors that impact your blood sugar. 10 of them are nutrition. Just 10. So if you wear a continuous glucose monitor and we see that your blood sugar is elevated and somebody says to you, hey, that meal that you just ate is problematic for your blood sugar, you should stop having that. This happens all the time. And it's usually stop having oatmeal or don't have the banana. You should have cauliflower instead, and you should probably only have hemp seeds, or something. It's like get rid of all the carbs and let's try to get lower and lower. Jen, you do something every single day, especially on Mondays, that blows your blood sugar through the roof. Do you know what that is?
Working out?
Yeah, intensely. I've seen you in there, right?
Okay.
Like intense workout is intense on the body. Stress on the body bumps our blood sugar up. I want your blood sugar to go up. But if you think it's related to your meal, do you know what I'm seeing people do? They're not eating before their workouts because they think that that's what's driving their blood sugar up. I'm like, no, your blood sugar should be up. Now, when you finish your workout, you would see if you were wearing a continuous glucose monitor, if I do a cool down instead of just stopping and eat something right away, that cool down is going to lower my blood sugar. So maybe I need to do that. If I do some some breathing, that might help me. On a day that I'm really stressed out, that could help me. For women, as we go through our cycle over the course of 28 days, our insulin sensitivity changes.
Okay.
So I may have like 5 days where my blood sugar with a continuous glucose monitor is just going to be higher. It's ridiculous information to tell me to eat totally differently at that time period. I want to exercise, I want to sleep. I may want to make some adjustments to what I'm eating, but we just don't want to only use a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, to dictate what it is we're eating.
That's so, okay, so let me ask you something about that, because it's like, right now that is like the craze. Anything with like how do you manage your glucose and wearing the glucose monitor. There's all these trends and fads, and that's
eat your protein first, have apple cider vinegar, like all these things, right?
Yeah. What does work? Like, what are some easy, basic things you can do to manage our glucose levels, or they kind of keep us from not spiking?
Well, in just
easy.
The most easy one, easy, I'm going to tell you the best one. All right, so I'm going to start with the best one, and that is optimize your digestion. If your digestion is not working better, first of all, you can't have any positive health results. Like, I'm sorry, if you're bloated, you're constipated, things are going the wrong way, like any other stuff's not going to work out. Because that hormone that I was talking about is in the lining of the mucosal layer of your digestive tract. So we've got to optimize that, and we have to have good functioning digestion so nutrients get where they're supposed to go. So that's not necessarily easy, but it is one we can assess and work on, and that's the most important one, and that's the often overlooked. The second thing that we can do is we can balance our nutrients. So we can turn around and we can say, hey, at this meal, you and I have talked about this, you love fruit. If I'm having, amazing, like great to have fruit, but maybe have some coconut with it, right? Or maybe have your green fat, or, whatever, like have balance, get some fats, get a little bit of protein in there. And then the third thing is really interesting. The third thing is you've got to be optimally hydrated. And I'm going to tell you that too many people today are trying to drink half their body weight in water, and they're running in and out of the bathroom all the time, peeing it all out, and they're thinking like, I'm totally hydrated, and when I have them do my hydration experiment, they fail it time and time again.
Okay, so I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know. This is one of my first questions I wanted to ask you is, how do you know if you're hydrated or not?
Right.
Is it not by just the amount of water? Because I thought if you're just drinking a lot of water, you'd be hydrated.
Yeah. Boy, have we screwed up the American population. Like, remember it used to be 8 ounces of glasses, like you needed to get that in. And then it was half your body weight. So I have people who, like athletes who are 300 pounds, trying to drink 150 ounces of water in a day. Just think about that. Like, your poor bladder. And then also people are chugging it all at one time. So this great physician, Dr. Anoop Kanodia, came up with this easy protocol. So it's not mine, but it is so effective. And he asked the question, are you a sponge or are you a hose? I'm the daughter of a urologist. I thought being a hose was a fantastic thing. Like, you want things to come in you want them to go out, etc. No, we need to be a sponge. We need to absorb, because the water that we're taking in is actually an escort service for a lot of important nutrients from plants, like all those plant compounds, the antioxidants we hear about it, vitamin C, all these B vitamins for energy. The way they get into the cell is by way of water. And in order for water to get into the cell, you have to have a better balance of minerals. So what we found is that over time, historically, we used to have more minerals in our water, and pretty smartly these days, we're filtering everything out of our water because we're worried about, what's in our water, like the dirty stuff. But in losing a lot of the micronutrients, those trace minerals and minerals in water, we're actually not absorbing our water. So if you drink 8 ounces of water, if you take 8 ounces, now you can't have had caffeine for about an hour, but if you drink 8 ounces of water, not more than that, I want to know how long you can go before you have to go to the bathroom, before you have to urinate. And when you do that test, I was just talking to Noah about this, when you do that test, that is going to tell me, are you absorbing your water? And are you also absorbing the supplements that or the food that you're working so hard to get in those nutrients?
Okay, so I pee every 10 minutes.
Yeah, I told you.
I'm running to the bathroom all the time.
Yeah.
So does that mean I'm dehydrated?
So it means you're not absorbing well.
Yeah.
So your hydration status there means that you're just throwing more water in, and it's doing a great thing. It's just clearing out of you. So it's great. And we've heard all these things, the color of your urine or all of these other stuff. maybe it's going to give us some indication, but it's not going to actually tell us if we are absorbing. So this was fascinating. We did a research study over 90 days to optimize people's blood sugar. And we looked at, starting off, when we saw changes in A1C of a couple of points in people, especially when they were elevated. We saw weight loss, especially belly fat in perimenopausal and menopausal women who haven't been able to lose weight, et cetera. And we did this by optimizing digestion, using a continuous glucose monitor to personalize nutrition. But you know what? So many of them, almost all of them, I'm trying to think if any of them didn't, we optimized their hydration. And the benefit of optimizing hydration, it's like tuning up your digestive system. You're now absorbing the nutrients that you're taking in, and you're getting rid of what your body doesn't have to use. It's just efficiency. It's fabulous. It's fascinating on that part.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then it doesn't matter. Like, I thought, like, your pee is white or very, very pale yellow. You're hydrated.
I mean, there are things that we can look at. So if your pee is really dark, I'm going to, like, there are things I want to, I want to investigate. If your pee is really bright, you probably have just taken a bunch of, vitamins, and maybe you're excreting, some that turn the color on that part. But you're not safe to say my pee is white or is clear. I think we should say I'm hydrated on that part.
Clear. Yeah, exactly. No.
And this is another one. So people always debate me. One of our good friends debates me on this part. He's like, well, coffee and tea, they have water in them. They can count towards your water intake. And I'm not going to out them here. But on that part, yeah, exactly. And we were just giving presentations together. And he's like, oh, yes, they can count. No, they can't. Because they are, when you have caffeine is going to stimulate urination. You are going to pee it out. So if I've just had coffee, I'm going to pee it out, right? So in that part, you don't want to use that to as a marker of your absorption on that part. Boy, is this a lot of information.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's very hard. I try to get like four sentences out from you, like just so it's like sound biteable.
Yeah, okay.
God knows. You need literally like a pen and paper when I talk to you.
All right, I'm going to give you the sound bites.
Okay. No, I got it.
Okay.
You said it.
All right.
Actually, no, say it now. Tips to know if we are hydrated or not.
Yeah.
Give me 4. Easy.
I'm not even going to give you 4. I'm going to give you 1. Drink 8 ounces of water and see how long it takes you before you have to urinate. Can't have had caffeine within an hour.
Okay. And if we urinate within that hour, we're dehydrated.
If it's under 2 hours.
Under 2 hours.
Under 2 hours. Now, you can't have coffee and other things after you have it. You got to wait those 2 hours. You don't have any other water or anything else during that time period. And see until, you don't have anything until you urinate.
Okay. Is it a myth that we should all be taking vitamin D? Because I feel like now vitamin D is like the new kale. Like everybody and their dog is
cauliflower.
now.
Yeah, totally. Either one.
Yeah.
So I think it is important. It's one of the nutrients that I don't know how we could get even close to the amount that we need because it functions as a hormone in our body and because it's related to almost everything metabolic and from an immune standpoint. So the question mark to me, you're going to love this, is you need to know what your vitamin D levels are. Insurance usually only reimburses 1. That's why we have a $12 lab that we can just test your labs because we need to go out of pocket on that. And we have to keep increasing your amount. So what I don't want you to do is just take vitamin D and think you're okay.
Yeah.
If you come to me and your vitamin D is a 35 and I want it to be, let's say, a 50, I'm just, on that part for you.
Okay.
And I put you on 5,000 IU of vitamin D, hopefully with K2, because that helps in the absorption. If put you on that, and you just walk out the door and a year later you come back in and your vitamin D is 36, I haven't done anything beneficial on that part. So one of the other things is never take a supplement. This is a good one. Never take a supplement without a plan in place to evaluate its effectiveness. Usually I like to evaluate its effectiveness over 90 days. Sometimes I'll evaluate it in a shorter term. Sometimes I'll evaluate it in a longer term. But anyone that is selling you or prescribing a supplement to you, or if you're just choosing to take it, you better be able to tell me what has that supplement done for you. Because you're paying money for it and it's not food.
No, and also you start taking them I take my supplements for years on end. And I don't know how
not
effective.
Okay. Yeah.
And people always say, well, do you like it? Does it work?
Yeah.
And then I'm always saying, well, I don't know.
How do you know?
Right. I don't know.
How do you know? And this is the tie-in that I want to tell you. Look, we are diseased with too much information. We are out there, you're learning, you're gathering information. I call this infobesity. We have too much information and it is actually challenging our health. All that great health information, listening to me right now, these conversations, you're thinking like, oh, I'm getting a PhD in nutrition. Totally. But a PhD actually doesn't help you get healthier. It doesn't. It helps you maybe pass a test. It helps you maybe get a job. It helps you any of that stuff, but it doesn't help you personally get healthier. And what I've seen day in and day out is that people's info load, the amount of information that they are taking in, is literally making them unhealthy because they know all of this stuff, but they're not actually doing what's better for their body today. So what I do, and what I recommend anybody does, is reduce the amount of information that we're taking in and have it be real targeted. I like to hit my bullseye information, and that bullseye information is information that can prove that you know about me and what my body needs, and that's where I make my decisions from. So if anyone, if like, it's great to know about vitamin D, but don't go start taking vitamin D. Like, I love True Niagen. I love, being able to take green fat. Like, I've got all these benefits from Pendulum, et cetera, but don't just start taking something without something in place that is going to tell you that it's working for you. Otherwise, you're just putting information and stuff into the body, and you have no idea if your body is totally overwhelmed. And more often than not, I find that people are literally, I was telling somebody the other day, and there's actually research studies about this, too much information is keeping people from actually being able to distinguish between good information, helpful information, and the irrelevant information. This was years ago, but I had hundreds of women reaching out to me about stopping their omega-3 supplement. Do you know why?
Why?
A study was in the news, and I was in the news with it, about fish oil being bad for your prostate.
Even though they were women.
Thank you for picking up on that. So they're all like, I was like blowing up. It was my emails. It was even before my text was out there.
I remember
like,
that
do you remember,
study.
yes,
remember that
yes.
study.
Yeah, hey ladies, like, until you got a prostate, like, this probably isn't what we need to focus on.
This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
And like the social media aspect is like TikTok with like, they'll spew, this is the best thing in the world. This is the best thing.
Can I tag on something you just said there? There is no best thing in the world. Like, let's just answer that. Like, legitimately, the facts, there's no best thing in the world. There's something that could be a better choice for your body today, but it needs to be informed by us understanding what your body needs.
Okay, how about with overall gut health? Right?
Yeah.
Because gut health is a big one.
Yeah.
Get a huge hashtag, microbiome,
gut
health, big words. And this is a good supplement. That's a good supplement. So I think what you're saying is, don't just buy any stuff. Like, if we know we have let's say we know we have a bad micro, we have a
How do you know?
digestion problem.
How do you know?
So I'm saying, is the first step always to take a blood test?
No, great question. That is a super important one because people are wasting a lot of money and they're also buying things online based on commercials that are like, oh, I was eating, I had all this bad digestion and I took the test and they said almonds and almonds were my problem, so I stopped eating almonds and now I'm all better. No, when your digestive system is irritated, if you take any test, it is going to show us that what you're currently eating is bothering your system. And so I would have people coming into my office in tears, like, oh my gosh, and I have this, and also they'd be like, it's so random. I'm allergic to kale, and I'm also allergic to almonds and apple cider vinegar. And I was like looking at all this stuff. I'm like, oh, did you by any chance have a kale, apple cider vinegar, almond salad? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, that's what your system said. It's pissed at you. Like, that's all. So anything that's going in is irritating. So
because why though?
Because if your system is inflamed and irritated, what you're putting in. Right. Now, of course, if you have a true allergy, that's different. So I don't want to diminish. There are absolute benefits for these tools, but just going at that first is so problematic and expensive. So I don't have copious amounts of resources. I want to be very targeted with how I'm going to spend. So there's something called the right order. So to me, the right order is tune up your digestive system. Do some things that will support your digestive system, and maybe remove some of the things that we just know to be probably, not so great for our digestive system, like late night eating or the extra beer or wine or, whatever it is. is for 30 days. And then let's see how much better certain things got. And then we could go ahead and decide to do testing. So that's number one. Number two, your body sends you a lot of signals. And I think what ends up happening is because there are products that can help us band-aid those signals, we actually don't go deeper. So deodorant, mouthwash, mints, gum, throwing back chlorophyll shots, vaginal douching, like all these different things, they're to cover up smells. Well, when your body changes and starts to smell worse, you're going to turn around, like you should be turning around and saying, why? Why is that happening? So if that is happening, your body is sending us a signal that something internally is not going better. If my skin breaks out, if I've got darkness, bags under my eyes, if I've got things going on with my skin, if for goodness sakes things are going in the wrong direction or they are not going at all, if I'm pooping pellets, that is a signal. And it doesn't mean I should just throw a whole bunch of magnesium at it or, go take fiber or do any of these like over-the-counter recommendations. It means we need to dive deeper and understand what is going on because so many things impact our digestion. It really is it's our operational system. So I don't necessarily think you need to test. You do need to experiment and or identify. So we have a free quiz that we use you can go in and answer these questions. And I recommend for people that you check in on your digestion. That's one of the things I recommend at least quarterly. If something else happens life-wise, like maybe you just gave birth or you had a surgery or an accident, I'm going to have you check in more often or more frequently than that. But at minimum, you want to check in on a quarterly basis.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Again, very long.
Yeah, sorry. Jen's like, keep the answers short. I'm like, totally. I got this. Do you like my short answers? Yeah.
Well, calling Ashley to get a little piece of information is never a very short conversation, let me tell you.
Well, I think that's one of the things. Don't look for a simple answer. As much as that totally sucks, the worst information, what's on social media, what is presented by our government, any of these places, they're oversimplified pieces of information. And they're done also these days for marketing or to be catchy because everybody's got a publicist or is, selling something. So you're complicated. You want somebody that actually knows you and your body. It's why I love our Infobesity assessment. You go in and you actually see, you ask yourself questions about each of your information sources.
Okay, yeah. This is interesting. Okay, I have a question. How are you different? This is more of a personal question because you're so knowledgeable. And this is not an ad, you guys. This is literally because it's how are you different than, you're not a functional medicine doctor, but you give a lot of information. I've spoken to a ton of functional medicine doctors, a ton of doctors. I talked to gut specialists, whatever. What's the difference between you and them? Are you basically similar?
Better branding. No, I'm just kidding. But, okay, so I actually was just having this conversation because I was at a conference and we, develop programs for functional medicine doctors and and I was like, well, I actually grew up in the integrative medicine world. So that was Andy Weil and Tirona Lodog and Victoria Mazes. And so that's integrative medicine. But then there's also lifestyle medicine. And there are all of these proponents of life. Look, across the board, we are just confusing everyone.
Yeah, Infobesity.
Yeah, we should call this root cause medicine. So essentially, think of a tree and get into the roots. At the end of the day, we need to dive into the roots and not try to solve a problem with the fruit. Ooh, did that almost rhyme? But on that part. So we don't want to Band-Aid up here. We got to go down deeper. And that's the type of practice that I do. But here's the primary difference. You said something really interesting. Functional medicine doctor. Forget about the functional part for a second. The difference between me and a doctor is doctors diagnose. A lot of doctors today are going beyond diagnosing and they're presenting you with protocols or ways for you to actually implement what they want you. But most of them are just telling you what to do. My focus is on the how. And when you get into the how, it has to be personalized. My choices have to be deliciously doable. One of the things I challenge people to do is take 2 bites of whatever you're drinking or you're sipping and answer the question on a scale of 1 to 10, is it a 7 or greater? If it's not, stop. Put it down if you can. Because we overeat on the 4, 5s, and 6s. We tend to consume more of that. And then, or if you're like me, maybe eat something real healthy that's maybe like a 5 or a 6, but I'm going to look for an 8 later. So I'm going to go find the chocolate. I'm going to go find, or I'm going to have the fourth glass of wine or whatever it is, because it's not delicious to me. So I don't want an eat this, not that checklist for you. I want to turn around and say, hey, we have a goal. We want to reduce inflammation in your body, or we want to prevent the production of excess or chronic inflammation in the body. So I want to turn around. I know these things are going to be better for you and these things aren't going to be as good. How could we figure out a deliciously doable plan? And if you turn to me and say, well, I'm just not going to eat salmon, I'm like, all right, then what about getting in green fat, and how do you feel about walnuts, or how do you feel about, whatever.
So wait, hold on.
It's personalized.
Are you trying to say that you should only eat like 8s and 9s and not like 5s and 6s?
So I'd like it to be a 7, 8, 9, or 10. And 10 is like, I could write a sonnet. Like, I love this food so much.
Why? Because then we're filling up on things we don't like.
Think about what you had to eat.
And then because I'm not
satisfied, right.
I will go look for other things and eat more.
Totally.
So you end up eating less
That's
if you're
right.
eating 7s
and you're
8s.
Satisfied. It's one of my favorite holiday tips. But I use it for people all the time. And the interesting, look, life happens and we may be stuck with a 4 or 5, but recognize that you're with a 4 or 5. Hopefully you're not a 1, 2, or 3.
Are we talking about dating or eating?
We're talking about dating and eating on that part. Hopefully you're not eating 1, 2s, or 3s, but you will notice.
Are we talking about dating?
Yes, and yes, especially on the eating part. But we turn around on that piece and we say to ourselves, and remember, delicious happens with our eyes, it happens with our nose. So if I improve the smell of something, I may actually take it from a 5 or 6 up to a 7 or 8. So this is like another one that like I can't stand, is this whole like mindfulness eating. If somebody tells me to be mindful while I'm eating, first of all, have you met my life, or like just, or whatever. And it's also like it's kind of like a doctor saying to you, you need to work on your stress. That will produce a middle finger from me. But if you give me a skill, if you turn around and say, the way that I'm mindful is I actually want to stop and see, was that actually delicious to me? You know me, I will walk 10 miles or drive 3 hours for a better coffee.
Yeah, she absolutely will.
Facts. I will go for something that tastes delicious.
You also, though, are about quality.
Yes.
So the thing with you is, it may not...
I being a qualitarian. Yeah. You can be one, too.
Yeah, you're
yes.
So Ashley, by the way, just side note here, Ashley had this thing a long time ago called Koff Approved. Right?
Ashley Koff Approved. That's my name. It had to be called that so I could trademark it.
Right. And she called herself an equalitarian because the food had to hit a certain quality for her to put her stamp of approval on.
Nonprofit. It still exists.
Whatever.
It's on my website.
It is?
Yes, totally. It's still there.
I mean,
I haven't updated it, so there may be some things that are like no longer on the market or whatever.
But everything was like, she looks at where it's sourced, the ingredients. I have a friend like that.
And the marketing messages.
My friend Darren Olean, I talk about him all the time, he's one of my best friends. Yeah. He's very much like that too.
He's a total qualitarian.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you will walk 9 miles. Yeah. So then it's not about the taste necessarily, because 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's
right.
It's not. It's also about the caliber of the thing that you're eating.
Because it's not going to make me happy.
Right.
If it doesn't, and by the way, it has to be delicious to me today. So that's why I call it the better be delicious test, or better be delicious to me test. I don't care what's delicious to you, right? That might be a problem if we're eating together, but we can even customize things. Think about your kids.
Oh, I thought you meant if I ate French fries, that's a 10, 10, 10 all around.
No, I'm going to call your bluff on that.
Okay.
How many times have you eaten French fries that are maybe a 4, 5, or 6? You've had amazing French fries, I'm sure. But when you eat them, are they really, if you ask yourself?
Well, any French fry is a good French fry.
But
my point is, you could be eating shitty food.
You could totally be eating shitty food.
But it's still a 10 to me because I love French fries.
It's not the only,
But my point is, am I allowed to eat?
You absolutely are, yeah.
Okay, because then I'll be satisfied.
That's right.
And I won't be eating the
And what
other
I would probably say to you is, if we're doing it and you're having a turkey burger, and then skip the bun on the burger, go ahead and have the turkey burger, and then have some of the fries. And you're not going to be looking for the milkshake or the dessert, on that part.
Well, so
I know you will.
Okay, because that's what I do. So remember I tell you, so I'm obsessed with fruit because I feel like I tricked my brain, right? Because I eat very specifically. And then because I'm not satisfied, because I'm not getting that feeling of satiation, I'll go and eat 11 pounds of cherries and grapes, which is so much sugar.
And your poor digestion.
I mean, and it's terrible for my digestion. But my point is because I'm craving that sugar.
That's right. That's right.
So it's even worse. Is it better just to have what would be something I should have instead?
You and I had talked about this, which is nutrient balance. So if you had it, but you also had some fat and some protein with it, you're and especially you tend to do that in the afternoon. your blood sugar is going down, maybe you had coffee in the morning, like, whatever it is on that part. But I think for you, that's probably a key, where it's, I want to allow myself to have it. Look, you can't eat unlimited quantities. It's not like the Better Be Delicious test is the only thing that I do. But when I'm working with people to make better choices, we can do that. I also have the 9 sips rule. I mean, look, you got to gamify this stuff. Like,
okay, hold on. What's the 9 sips rule?
The 9 sips rule happened. I'm often a guinea pig because I was going to a bunch of parties and I wanted to be able, and I go to great parties, and somebody had really amazing wine and I wanted to taste a variety. And so they're pouring glasses and I was like, I can't have 4 glasses, 9 glasses, whatever. It wasn't a wine tasting. It was literally like people are, drinking all of this. And so I was in there and I'm like, okay, well, let's go ahead. And I realized I drank 1 glass and I realized it's about 9 sips. Well, I had 9 different sips. I sipped on, all of them, and I got to taste everything. Some were delicious, some weren't. The ones that weren't, I was like, definitely not going to have more of. But I felt really satisfied from that part. And especially during the holiday season, and by the way, they don't have to be alcohol sips. These mocktails these days, or coffee drinks, or, just different things like that. 9 sips is a good amount to say, I get to enjoy something. I might have 9 sips of one thing, or I might turn around and say, I'm gonna have a couple over here and a couple over here. Because I was also finding that people would tell me they had 1 glass. I mean, I worked in Hollywood for a long time and with a lot of comedians, and they're like, don't worry, Ashley, I only have 1 glass of wine at night. And, one of them was like, it was literally, he's like, the glass, he's like, it's so weird that 5 bottles had 1 glass of wine in it. And he's like, I just kept pouring it in the same glass, I'm like, come on that part. I mean, it was ridiculous, So I was like, hey, I've got to give us like ground rules that actually work, and it's just.
So 9 sips.
9 sips. So when, like, if you're thinking about it, you go out and you're like, I want to have a fabulous drink, like have 9 sips on that part. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
These are great tips. Okay, Ashley, I love your info. Okay, we got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So you tell me, I know where you are.
Yeah.
How do people get more information from you?
Sure. Well, my company's the Better Nutrition Program, so everything is there. We do have free evaluations. We've got our digestive evaluations, so you can check in. Please just do that on regular. And we have this Infobesity guide. I'm only offering this to you and your people for free, but it has actually the experiment that you can go in and see if you have Infobesity. 96% is the percentage of people that have Infobesity from what I have tested since 2015. 96%, including myself. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Actually, I love speaking with you.
Thanks. So fun. I love the podcast.
No,
yeah.
You're a fountain of information.
Thank you.
Is that like a...
Well, hopefully, I'm not just information, because we don't want to just be too much information, but hopefully I'm directing you to places where I can be your bullseye source of information.
That's
which
right.
is what we're looking for.
Very valuable bullseye information.
Yeah, a vetting process.
A vetting process.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Well, you're my go-to, so thank you.
Thank
you.
Yeah,
Thanks
for having me.
fun.
Totally.
Bye.